Hello, good afternoon. It's afternoon where I am here in Arkansas, where we had sleet yesterday and ice. Not a lot of accumulation, but enough to make everything a mess. And me having fallen on ice a few times, if you know me, can't go outside. I can't go outside. So, what I was doing, I was looking around, what do I want to talk about today on my channel? And I started looking, I've been talking about everything that's been going on in Washington. Hey, Kerm the Frog. And we've got, protests that happened on President's Day and then also on Tuesday. So I thought, well, let's just watch these together. I've got news clips. I want to start with Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki used to be with President Biden as his spokesperson. I forgot what their title is, but I don't know, press secretary, I guess. Anyway, the person who does their press briefings every day. And now she's at MSNBC. And so she's going to go through some of the things. And then I've got some other clips I want to look at. I hope y'all are doing well today. If you're new to me, I haven't really done much on politics over the 2 or 3 years I've had my channel. But at this point, we're on to politics. So if you hate thinking about what's going on, I don't think you should bury your head. I think you should listen. And I believe you should listen to all sides, not just Jen Psaki or me or, any other Democrat, but you need to listen to all the sides, because what's happening now is really out of the control of any of the parties. Hey, Betty Damboop. And I predict, if you haven't seen me talking about, I've got something bugging me here. Hold on. If you haven't seen me talking about politics, I've been talking about how I predict that soon the left and the right will be united against these policies, because the people losing their jobs in Washington, the government employees who are all over the United States and the world, actually, not just in Washington, are losing their jobs. They're just getting kicked off. And then another thing they're doing is they're taking people who are in their, I guess it's a 4-year, I don't know, there was a young lady on my Facebook. I don't know where she's from, but she worked for the state, maybe the parks or something. I'm not sure. She lost her job. She was in what they call, it's sort of like an internship, not an internship, probationary period. And so she was on her probationary period at the beginning of her employment. And so she just lost her job. And what you're going to hear on one of these videos is how they lost their jobs. And then the money ended. It just ended right then. No more money. So I want to start, like I said, I'm concerned and I can't get this stuff off my mind. The only way I can get it off my mind is to go watch a movie or listen to something on YouTube that's not politics related, that kind of stuff. But I'm staying in tune with it because I need to know what's going on around me. And I don't know that I can help in any way with what's happening or stop it or do anything. I don't know that these protests will stop it, but we've got to get our people in Washington. We've got to call our senators. We got to call our congressmen. We got to call these people and have them do something. So let's listen to what Miss Jen Psaki says.
You won't be surprised to hear, because you may be among them, it turns out the American people don't love watching Donald Trump and Elon Musk take an absolute wrecking ball to the federal government. I mean, today we saw massive protests right here in Washington, D.C., and also all across the country. You can see some of the photos on our screen. We saw protests in big cities and small towns and at state capitals. We saw just how pissed off people are about what's happening right now. And who could blame them? I mean, we just learned that Elon Musk's Doge crew is trying to get access to personal taxpayer data at the IRS. So basically, the world's richest man and his band of 20-something cronies want access to your personal data. They want access to your tax returns, your addresses, your employment information, your banking details, and your social security numbers. I mean, this is the kind of issue that hits home for all of us. I'm sure it hits home for you, because most of us pay taxes, right? Just like most of us fly in on airplanes. And today, unbelievably, there was
she's about to talk about this. This is from yesterday. So this plane that flipped over, I heard there was another plane crash this morning, at least one dead. There's been planes falling out of the sky. I don't know what's going on. Why, what's the cause of all this, but it's crazy.
Another major commercial airline incident. A Delta plane that took off from Minneapolis flipped over when it was attempting to land in Toronto. Nobody was killed, but at least 17 people were injured. And of course, it's just the latest in a series of air incidents since Trump was sworn in. And since an Army helicopter and an American Airlines plane collided right here in Washington, killing 67 people. Well, today, just 19 days after that tragedy, we are also getting new details about the Trump administration's purge of hundreds of critical air safety workers at the FAA. And I'm going to go into more detail also with somebody who knows a lot about it in just a moment. But the larger point is this. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are screwing around with government in all sorts of ways that impact you personally, and in ways that impact our national security and our safety more broadly. And in that,
this completely crosses party lines. I've been saying this for weeks. Not that many weeks. Since January 20th. This stuff is not, you got to get off this us against them when you're talking about the United States and the election's over, right? So it's us against them as far as you're taking things from all of us, both parties. I just say it too much, I guess. That's all I can say.
In that process, they're teaching us a whole lot about all of the ways that government actually keeps us safe. For example, when the U.S. military needs to deploy more nuclear warheads on its planes and submarines to defend us, do you know who actually holds the components for those weapons? Who puts them together, makes sure they're safe, and delivers them to the Pentagon? Well, most of that work is actually done by the same people who also refurbish old nuclear weapons and dismantle the retired ones. And it all happens at one plant on the Sandy Plains outside of Amarillo, Texas, called the Pantex plant. It's where the employees and contractors for the Department of Energy are constantly inspecting and outfitting America's nuclear weapons with high explosives, as well as their cores of highly radioactive uranium and plutonium. All of this highly secretive, highly dangerous work is run by the Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration. They oversee the U.S. nuclear stockpile and its components, not just at Pantex, but at an entire network of plants, labs, and bases across the country. The NNSA does all of that and transports nuclear material on U.S. highways using a highly trained and heavily armed fleet of trucks and vehicles. And this is all overseen by career staff with very, very specific expertise. For some of them, decades of it. It's also the sort of government function that we don't think about all the time. I hope you don't think about all the time, but it's always working in the background. It has to work because you can't mess around with the people who handle our nuclear weapons. Well, at least you thought you can't.
The latest bit of information coming in from the National Nuclear Security Agency, which is tasked with overseeing and building the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile. Their notices have gone out with termination for probationary employees effective immediately.
That's right. So as part of its purge of government employees, Elon Musk and his merry band of young Doge axemen unilaterally fired 350 workers at the agency responsible for safeguarding nuclear arms components. And almost immediately, they realized they'd made a terrible mistake.
NBC News has obtained an email sent to employees of the National Nuclear Security Administration. It says in part the termination letters for some NNSA probationary employees are being rescinded, adding that officials do not have a good way to get in touch with those personnel.
Do not have a good way to get in touch. Okay, that's right. Under Elon Musk's eye, the Trump White House fired a chunk of the NNSA workforce, and one of the hardest hit offices was the Pantex plant that I was just talking about, near Amarillo, Texas. They saw about 30% of the cuts. That's the plant where employees work on reassembling warheads, one of the most sensitive jobs across the nuclear weapons enterprise, with the highest levels of clearance. But now the geniuses who let those employees go can't figure out how to unfire the people that had just locked out of government buildings and email.
Now, we could replay that, but they don't know how to undo what they did. And that's what we were saying, I don't know, a week or so, 2 weeks ago, about how the website, the portal for Medicaid was shut down that day, was taken down, it was offline all that day when they rescinded funding for, all these things. And they said they weren't touching Medicare, Medicaid, or Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. However, this website portal thing went down. And from things that I have seen and read online, some of the things never came back up. Now they fired all these very highly trained, secretive, nuclear security people who not just anybody can go do that job. They fired them and they don't know how to unfire them.
You literally can't make it up sometimes.
Can't.
The director of the Arms Control Association told the AP, quote, "The Doge people are coming in with absolutely no knowledge of what these departments are responsible for." So yes, they are messing around with the people who literally handle our nuclear bombs. That's what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing. Now, at the same time, the Trump administration is firing hundreds of employees at the FAA, just weeks after the deadliest U.S. air disaster in decades. Those firings reportedly include personnel hired for FAA radar, landing and navigational aid maintenance, as well as a technician who was working on a critical cruise missile defense radar system. Now, as I mentioned, there's already been a spike in serious and fatal crashes since Trump took office. And since the FAA's chief resigned.
Let's look at that. On January 29th, we had a DC crash. That was the big one. That's the one that killed so many people. And then 2 days later, there was a Philly Learjet crash. And then February 5th, a Seattle runway collision. February 6th, Nome, Alaska air crash, which was a plane that had left the United States, and it was a U.S. plane. In Nome, Alaska, Scottsdale, Arizona plane crash, San Diego Navy jet crash, Covington, Georgia plane crash. And then yesterday, add to that, the day before was the plane that flipped on landing, caught fire and flipped. And then there's been one or two more smaller plane crashes, one today. Yeah, where is JD Vance? That's a good question. I think I've seen him though in the news, but you don't see him. You don't see him on TV interviews. There's a televised interview I have only seen clips of so far with Trump and Elon sitting there talking. But normally you'd just have the president doing that right now. But yeah, where is he? And you'd think the vice president would be in the middle of this because Trump doesn't really even like him. And look, he didn't buy Trump the election. Elon Musk is the one who gave $250 million to help Trump get elected. If that's all he did, that was plenty, right? That's a lot of money. He might have done more. I mean, he is very tech savvy. He knows how to build freaking planes to fly into, rockets. He says he's going to Mars, but he wants to die on Mars, but he doesn't want to die on impact. That was his funny joke that he says.
In accordance with the demands of Elon Musk. And that list doesn't even include the latest. That Delta plane that crash landed and flipped on the runway in Toronto. That flight left from Minneapolis under FAA supervision, though it was being directed at the time of the crash by their Canadian counterparts. Even still, lots of Americans are understandably wondering, you may be too, if Trump's FAA is still able to keep air travel safe, just as more firings of critical air safety personnel are underway. So yes, people are pissed, and it is not hard to see why. And as we watch these protests play out across the country, we're also watching a metaphorical ticking time bomb in a country where we suddenly have to worry about the safety of our air travel and of our literal nuclear bombs. Starting us off tonight is David Spiro. He's the president of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialist Unit. David, thank you so much for taking the time here. I mentioned this, and I know you've probably been answering this question from friends and family as well. And people are understandably a little freaked out right now about air travel. And we're simultaneously seeing all of these layoffs, these firings that are happening.
I personally was afraid to fly when I started flying, 30 years ago or something. First time I flew was in a tiny little prop plane that a guy that I didn't know very well owned and flew me around. We just flew around. We went up and flew around. But when I started flying in these jets, I was scared, and I had to take Xanax and everything. And now I would be afraid because something's going on. This is not normal. It's not normal. And I don't know if we were so on the line of not having enough. I think that's part of it, is we didn't have enough air traffic controllers, and then they laid off a bunch of them or fired them. So I don't know. And y'all, there's not going to be unemployment for these people who lose their jobs. I mean, and even if you did draw unemployment, I've never had unemployment, but you don't draw your regular amount of money. And people who work for the government, they don't make a lot of money, but they have, it's a good income, and it's a steady income, and it is what they've lived on and what they've borrowed against. Like, you buy it's like, if it doesn't matter if you have $1 million or you have $100,000, you spend accordingly, right? So a person who's like a millionaire is not going to go buy a $100,000 home. A person who has $100,000 is going to buy, isn't going to buy a $1 million home. And so you borrow up to what you have, right? And so when all of these people lose these jobs, just boom, you lost your job. No, you never knew you were going to lose your job. And you've got a family to take care of, and you've got children to feed. You've got, maybe you're helping your parents out, or your grandparents, or yourself. And you've got to, all of a sudden, you can't pay your mortgage. You can't pay for that car that you're driving. Maybe they had a company car or a government car, and they don't have that anymore. There's a lot of places you could cut without having to cut out all these jobs.
Happening under Donald Trump and Elon Musk, as well as what feels like an increase in incidents in the air. I just wonder how you make sense of what's happening, that all happening simultaneously.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a difficult few weeks, obviously, and our hearts go out to the passengers on the plane today, the crew, the first responders. Happily, at the moment, there's been no fatalities. So hopefully that stays the way it is. I think that it's important to note that the U.S. air traffic control system is safe, and our members are a key reason why that's the case. We work with integrity, we work with skill, and we have a deep background in how to maintain the air traffic control system and how to oversee it. But as you pointed out, just this past Friday, about 300 folks, 400 people got the axe on St. Valentine's Day, right? Out to dinner and enjoying a nice evening, and find out they lost their job. We didn't get any notice from the FAA. At this point right now, we don't know if it's 300, 400, or 1,000. Oh my God. Because
so it could be, I just want to pause on that. It could be way more than the 350 that have been reported.
It could be. They haven't told us who it is. And as far as we're concerned, the inspectors and the technicians, we have probationary inspectors and technicians that could possibly have gotten the axe, but we don't know that for certain. All that we're getting right now is our members reaching out to us and telling us, hey, I lost my job. And we're talking about people that support the entire air traffic control system by virtue of the support work that they do. So let me start out and talk about aeronautical information specialists. They are a skilled group of people that create charts, navigational processes, a performance-based navigation where aircraft can fly in a lot more efficiently. It takes a long time to develop those skills. There's at least 30 of them that are probationary employees in the FAA that we represent. And quite honestly, if they're gone, who's going to create that product? and the work that our aviation safety assistants do for our inspectors to make sure that they can actually go out and ramp airplanes and check on pilots and airworthiness of aircraft. They do all of that stuff because they have these support groups behind them.
You mentioned some of the skills, and maybe those are the main ones for people to understand. But for people who are watching who aren't experts, for all of these layoffs, and it was already understaffed to begin with, what is the impact on airports and the ability to safely land planes? How should people understand that?
If anybody's watching here, or if you watch the replay and your job got axed by, I guess, Elon Trump. We'll just start calling him Elon Trump. If your job got axed, I would love to talk to you. I'd love to talk to you either on video or, on the phone or whatever. I would love to talk to you and possibly interview you, because you'll know other people who also, if you work for the government, who also lost their job and what that impact is on you. So, my email is thescoopwithbarb@gmail.com. And you're, welcome to send me an email. It's also in the description of this video. If you're watching, please go ahead and subscribe so you can keep up with everything that's going on in the United States.
If these cuts continue.
Well, if these cuts continue, I don't know how far into the bone you can go before you have to start looking at let's look at navigational aids or radars or automation systems that air traffic controllers use, communications that they use to get the airplanes up in the air and down to their destination and people there safely. If we don't have the right people with the right skill sets working in these locations, or if they're off doing something else because they don't have that support group anymore, then quite honestly, we're going to have delays. There's always backup systems, but if I don't have the right person in the right place to be able to restore a system like happened in Chicago last year, where we didn't have anyone on duty that could intervene in the automation system, where they were having errors coming through and controllers couldn't tell what the planes were. So we had to stop. We had stops at 5 airports in the Chicago area. That sort of thing is because you don't have the right person in the right place. Now, if we're going to have to leave the work that we do and go off somewhere else to take care of work that someone else was doing for us to make sure that we can do our jobs, then that's going to make it even more difficult.
Wow. So that was the end of that.
We began in the United States.
So now we're just going to go through some little short news clips showing around the country what's going on with the people in the street. And they're having peaceful protests. I know I'm in Arkansas, and I know that we've had a few at our capital in Little Rock. If I was still living in Little Rock, I would definitely have been out there because I used to be like an independent photojournalist, and also I actually worked for a newspaper and did photography for them as well. But I did a lot of just on my own without pay, things at the Capitol, taking a lot of event photos, protests and everything. I think that when the year that Hillary lost, I guess that was the 2020 election, there was a big women's march or something like the next day. There was a ton of us out there all over the country, right? And so I used to do that, and I may start doing that here. I would have, it's like an hour's drive away, so I don't know. I'm not in the best of physical shape, so I will see. But these are just some news clips that I found this morning.
States where thousands took to the streets to protest against President Donald Trump's policies. The rallies were organized by the 50501 movement across the country yesterday, coinciding with President's Day holiday, which was meant to honor the nation's former presidents. Now 50501 stands for 50 states, 50 cities, one day, which has gone from being a grassroots activity to a large-scale movement against the Trump administration.
We're here because we're trying to protest the overreach that President Trump and Elon Musk
He almost said President Musk
using to ruin our government and ruin our image around the world, honestly, because we fought for a strong America that helps people, that does the right thing, and we want to make sure that we maintain that legacy for future generations.
Now, one of the largest rallies was held on Capitol Hill here in Washington, D.C., and thousands of people also protested in New York City, Boston, Austin, Texas, and Denver, Colorado. Rallies were also seen in Los Angeles, Tallahassee, Florida, and Cincinnati, Ohio. Demonstrators marched against a range of topics, including President Trump's push for peace talks regarding Ukraine, as well as his domestic policies, which include the large-scale layoffs of federal employees. Dissent also grew against President Trump's closest ally, Elon Musk, and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Now, this is as DOGE tries to get access to highly sensitive data of taxpaying Americans, and as Musk urges the Trump administration to grant him permission to audit the IRS.
So I think that Congress needs to step in and protect the power of the purse. I don't think that DOGE has the right to have our personal information, our personal data. I don't think that DOGE has the right to cut programs.
I think he's an ass. I think that he was not elected to anything. He should not have this much power. The fact that he's been given a blank check is terrifying. And I really wish that Congress would actually do their job, as people are chanting, and do something about the fact that this is an unelected citizen who has all this power of the government. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no experience working in government. He shouldn't be doing any of this. And the fact that Trump is allowing this or encouraging this is terrifying.
Meanwhile, several Democrats joined the anti-Trump and Musk rallies and accused the White House of replacing a merit-based system with that of crony capitalism. The latest round of protests comes just 2 weeks after similar rallies were held across the country on the 5th of February. And it all underscores just how thousands of Americans are expressing their frustration with the current administration.
We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Enough bung out it as the minimum to wage defense. Think from that video. India's neighbors were the first to set the special edition of Vantage.
All right, that was enough of that one. Most of them aren't, but a couple minutes long.
Yeah, it is, Jessica, but the focus here for folks was certainly on how the president's new administration is affecting them here locally. Now, the theme of this protest today was no kings on President's Day. We saw more than 1,000 people out here on the Boston Common with signs calling President Trump a fascist, many calling his presidency a coup, despite being elected by a majority of the country. They also say Elon Musk has had too much power in his role in cutting federal expenditures. Some here focusing, however, on President Trump's executive actions, especially as it pertains to birthright citizenship, saying his moves are illegal.
This is about the way the whole system is structured. All of us, every one of us. We can argue about the details, but fundamentally we all believe that predictable, reliable, equitable laws are the foundation of this country. They have always been. It started here, and it will continue here.
Now, after about an hour on the Boston Common, the protesters shut down city streets and made their way over to City Hall Plaza and eventually over to Faneuil Hall. Everything here remained peacefully throughout. State police and Boston police both confirming to us there were no arrests made here today. We're live here in Boston. I'm Peter Leopoulos, WCVB News Center 5.
All right. My dogs are like wanting to eat, and they just ate. I mean, it is time for them to eat, but.
Well, today, protesters against President Donald Trump and his policies organized demonstrations in all 50 states for the second time in 2 weeks. Today's protest timed to coincide with the holiday named No Kings on President's Day.
No Kings
11
on
Alive's Grace King is joining us live from the state capitol
We
tonight.
need those.
So,
That's
Grace, what are protesters here in our area saying?
They're upset about the new Trump administration and its policies, including job cuts at the Centers for Disease Control here in Atlanta. They're worried about their jobs as well as the future of public health. Trump and Musk have got to go. At Liberty Plaza, protesters criticizing DOGE, Elon Musk, and the choices they've made.
This isn't making people safer. This isn't fun or funny. This isn't, there are a lot of people wondering
Hi, Betty.
now if the life's work that they've dedicated to public health.
Ryan Sloan says he's among the hundreds of CDC employees laid off over the weekend. He had just started a probationary communications role in December.
I want to be at work. I don't want to hold a sign. I worked really hard for that job. I would like to go back to work.
There's a lot of people whose jobs are on the lines.
Eileen Kramer worries about the next round of cuts too.
There are 4 families in my synagogue that have their jobs threatened right now.
I don't know. Do y'all, if you go to church, if you have wherever you congregate, like I congregate at home, so I can't really say, but if you start seeing that people aren't around, I don't know, like they've lost their jobs, and we've already, there's already a lot of poverty. There's already a lot of homelessness. There's already a lot of, I watch the animal stuff a lot, animal shelter stuff in my area and around the state. And they're overburdened. People have been coming in to the local place where I actually got adopted the last dog that I got here. They have a food bank, and they're like 8 families came to the food bank today. 16 families came to the food bank today. We're out of large bags of dog food. Where we need people have to bring their dogs and cats back because they can't afford to feed them. And that's just the start. It's already been bad, right? But now we've got people who are making, I don't know, $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, losing their jobs that they've had for 20, 30 years. Just out of the blue, here we're overspending on this, so you're fired. Okay.
She's worried about their job security and her own health.
If something breaks out, we're going to know about it. If something new breaks out, we're going to know about it. We cut the employees that do that. We cut the ability to fight the next pandemic, and there will be a next pandemic. There have been a whole bunch in the past. There'll be one in the future. And infectious disease kills.
And this morning, Elon Musk defended these jobs on his social media platform X. He says America is going bankrupt from extreme levels of government spending, and that without, quote, radical action, we would be, quote, toast. Live at the Capitol, Grace King.
And I realized that every president travels, and Biden's thing was he was going to the beach, and now we've got Trump, and he's going to his different golf places and playing golf. And then he was at Daytona 500 in Florida, and he was driving around the racetrack in his limousine. It cost millions of dollars every time a president does these kinds of things. He went to the Super Bowl. And if you're really legitimately trying to cut spending by the U.S. government, start with your own self. Start with your own self. And, again, what I've been saying for days now, Elon Musk makes $8 million a day from U.S. government contracts. Now, he has legitimate businesses. I get that. But at the same time, he's able to see government contracts. He's got the keys to America. He's got the keys to our government. He's got, techies in there that can get into anything. And he knows what kind of contracts are out there. I mean, there's no stopping this other than getting him out, and Trump's not going to get rid of him. So, I mean, the only thing I can say is we can try, like Congress can try. The judges are stopping a lot of the things that he does. Judges are overturning, but like they just said, they fired all these people at FAA and they don't know how to unfire them. I don't even know.
5051, which stands for 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. They actually formed on the social media platform Reddit and have over 100,000 supporters on their page.
What particularly motivated you for this particular protest?
He supports a lot of things I go against, and I feel like he has too much control over our government at the moment for somebody who is not president. And I think it's good that we show that we don't support him or his products whatsoever.
I feel like there's a lack of action in opposing the movement towards fascism and literal Nazis in the United States.
Trump owns Congress. He owns the courts. He could have paid lip service to the rule of law, and he didn't bother to. And that is infuriating.
You're the guy who's smart enough to bring a ladder to the protest. I'm curious what brought you out here to begin with.
I decided to get off my butt and participate in what's going on in the country. And I needed something positive to do today, so here I came.
What's the part that you're most worried about in terms of what's going on?
Basically everything.
All of Donald Trump's actions, the Doge government agency that is sort of just set up, just really called me into action. And I definitely wanted to just make sure that my voice was heard and that people didn't sit down and take this.
I have many people I love who are trans, young, dissident, without the protections I have, or living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm terrified for them.
I got a mother who's living on Social Security and Medicare. I'm worried about the protections that were in place for the LGBTQAI plus community. I have a niece that's trans. I have a niece that was gay that took her own life the day of the election.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
And I just can't sit idly by anymore. So I came down here today and realized I'm not a big vocal person. But as I was walking around, I was like, you can't see anything. I was like, I got a ladder in my truck. So my ladder's here for anybody who wants to go up. Of course, go on up, be careful. So it made me think I'll have to keep bringing my ladder as I go to other things.
It lets people know that, this is what America stands for. Although I can't vote, people like me, minors, make up a large portion of the population. And so if we show what our views are, maybe parents out there might be like, oh, instead of voting for what I think my kid wants, this is what kids want. We don't want Elon.
I'm just here because I don't really know how to talk to my family, who's very conservative and all voted for Trump. So this might be a way for them to start a conversation, or for me to start the conversation.
I find this to be very interesting, hearing from people what reason they're out there. He said that his niece took her own life the day
For Stephanie Roth.
These are people. I don't understand, really. I don't understand. It seems like there's so many people who are self-centered and don't realize that what happens to one happens to all. Maybe not in the same way, like that homeless person over there. It didn't happen to me, but sometimes people are homeless because of one bad decision or 100 bad decisions, or because they have mental illness, or because a myriad number of reasons, right? A lot of different things can happen to a person. Mental health, physical health. You get into, I'm so concerned that this is going to blow up, and people are going to be, more and more people are going to be out homeless in the streets, nobody to feed them. None of these programs are in place. Our children are hungry. We've already got problems with starvation. We don't need starvation in America. What is wrong with us? And why are you taking jobs from people when every other president, every other elected official, you're trying to keep people working? That's what America was founded on, was people, what built America, or the people working, building cars, police forces. Yeah, I guess they're always going to have police. Why don't you just take all the money, fire all the FBI, you fire all the people who researched you, who were looking into you, investigating you. That is not right. I'm just furious about this.
Joins us now live in the studio with what people are worried about. Stephanie?
Grant, the rallying cry could be heard throughout the Bay Area, from San Jose to Oakland, right here in San Francisco, all calling on the Trump administration to hear their pleas for change.
People power! White power! People power!
At the foot of City Hall, a large group of protesters gathered to speak out about the Trump administration. One of the many demonstrations seen across all 50 states for President's Day.
Just the feeling of helplessness that I think a lot of people are experiencing, and I'm really sick of feeling that way. So I just wanted to be outside and feel like I was a part of people that are wanting to do something different.
The concerns range from a variety of topics aimed at President Trump and his policies, but disdain for Tesla CEO and recently appointed head of the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, took center stage almost as much as the president himself. A protest nearby at a Tesla dealership blocked off part of Van Ness with signs and chants of frustrations. The rally held in solidarity with those at City Hall.
I'm very upset about Musk and his minions accessing our data and messing with the computer systems. They're unelected and they're not being adequately supervised, and we don't have transparency into what they're doing.
Another top priority is threats against transgender rights, immigrants, and healthcare, emphasizing San Francisco's role as a sanctuary city.
My work is just communicating with our patients that nurses have their backs, and we intend to sound the alarm if we find out that healthcare systems are cowering to Trump.
There is a coup underway. There is a overturning of our democratic order and a betrayal of our founding fathers, a betrayal of the veterans that fought in World War II, a betrayal of the people that died in World War I, a betrayal of our tradition.
The demands met with a call for kindness and civility.
It's scary, and it needs to not happen. We need to come together as a country and support each other, and not, tear each other down.
The grassroots organizers who call for today's protest are having another one next week. So they're asking for a nationwide boycott of making purchases, attending work or school. That's all supposed to happen on Thursday, February 27th. Back to you.
All right, thank you.
That might have been the last one. Oh, I had another one.
SpaceX rocket company to visit the FAA headquarters. Musk reviewing the agency that he's supposed to be on equal bargaining terms with. And there's an allegation SpaceX violated safety rules in the past. So again, a lot of scrutiny on how safety works and what the priorities are and whether you cut corners to make money or not, because there have been these mass layoffs under the Trump administration at the FAA. And one of the unions there says this will only increase workload at a time where employees are further stretched thin. Again, we don't have evidence and the news is not indicating any direct causal link here, but rather a larger question of whether this is the time to cut back on aviation safety, and is this being done in a competent, thought-out manner? Those are the first sort of primary safety concerns. The second order concerns are whether Elon Musk, who doesn't run the FAA, hasn't been put on the cabinet, whether he should have this much authority. The courts, as you know from following the news, are tackling some of those related cases. The Trump administration also fired workers just last week at the National Nuclear Security Administration, not a place where you usually see rapid cutbacks. They oversee the United States stockpile of nuclear warheads, which number in the thousands.
We were looking.
So there were these swift cutbacks, but in a sign that even the Trump administration thinks that was a bad idea, within a day, they tried to take it back, seeking to rehire some of the workers they'd fired the day prior, struggling to find them because they didn't even have their new contact information. Not exactly a portrait of competence. Politico reporting a chaotic set of mass firings of over 3,000 people at health agencies, which was so unorganized, even some Trump political appointees were unaware which of their own employees were being fired or why. Today, there are also reports that Musk's team is trying to get access to your most sensitive personal data that the government holds, your taxpayer information, which, as everybody knows, can be sort of a blueprint to a lot of parts of your life, public or private. The IRS is alarmed. It includes detailed financial information about every taxpayer, business, and nonprofit in the country. This is tightly guarded stuff, and it's being seized or attempted to be seized by someone who won't even release his financial disclosures, Elon Musk, like the other cabinet officials. There's also efforts to install another Musk aide there. Trump and Musk, and what they're doing, this agenda, which isn't exactly just focused on lowering the price of eggs, is the context for today's President's Day protest. Many of these signs show that people are informed, they are engaged. They're not just talking about the idea or the brand of Trump and Musk, but the recent mass firings, the gutting of federal workforce, things that, quite frankly, are quite distant from some of what Trump campaigned on, particularly in those closing months. You can see Washington, large crowds just across from the U.S. Capitol. You can see here, this is what the new protest movement is starting to look like. And this is one feature amidst other places. New York City, protesters downtown in Union Square. Again, a sign that people are expressing themselves with their time, precious time off if they have the holiday, free time they might have gotten, a lunch break, depends on the person. But this is one of the ways that you see civic engagement, separate from an election, which was, by the way, decided by a point and a half. It's also in other places like Michigan, a smaller town of St. Joseph, where we saw people gathering, again, smaller crowds for a smaller area, but gathering even amidst the cold, showing their signs to passersby, drivers, etc. And then in warmer environs, Miami, San Francisco, we're also seeing this across the country today, Albany, Portland. And Americans are getting by in a range of ways. None of this says you're going to redo past debates. People understand the election was recent and what it resolved in. Others trying to wake people up with humor or culture. One protester in Boston with a sign, they're eating the checks. They're eating the balances. Or do your preferred Trump version of that infamous debate line. I want to show you, so we listen to what's happening out in our country, more of what we heard today.
I'm concerned about so many things that are going on that Musk and Trump are doing to our country.
Our founding fathers had a statement that I love. Eternal vigilance is the cost of freedom.
I'm here to stand up for other people. They're going to go after Medicare, Social Security. It's just ridiculous that these things are going unchecked.
You seem really worried.
Yeah, I'm really worried.
Me too.
This is what's happening now. This is America today. Campaigns are about what happens before the election. Civics is about what happens after the election. For the government, the people elected, it's what they do. For the rest of us, and that is most of us, it's what we do. And I've told you before, it is fine to take a break from the news or the political debates. It is fine to pull back and re-enter and figure out at what level that makes sense for you. Mm-hmm. Indeed, this is a program where we don't tell people whether to vote this way or that or to march today or not. But we will tell you what's happening. We will tell you what other folks are doing around the country. We are witnessing part of this civic awakening in multiple places.
I'm trying to awaken people to get involved in everything, but I just seem like I'm not getting a lot of views. I mean, obviously, my channel, I've switched topics completely, and I'm not bringing people in, and that's discouraging to me because I want people to be involved, right? And I want to feel like people are involved, and I want to feel like I'm being heard. And, a few people are here, and that's good, and I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad you hear me. And please, share this out because I'm going at this stuff and I'm trying to figure out what we can all do. Protests, it's not really going to get you anywhere, but it's good to be seen and to be out with people of like-mindedness and you feel like you're not alone. Because I just feel like I'm alone. I'm sitting here in my little house in my little town and I feel alone. And then I come on here and, I make a lot of videos I've been making a lot of videos about Trump and Elon, and they're not getting seen, and it's something I'm not doing. There's something in there that I'm not doing right. And I need to figure that out because, my main thing is I just want to be heard. And there's ways that I could get a lot of views really quickly, about other stuff, but this is important to me and this is what I want to do. Hey, Lacey, good to see you. And I just want, I need to feel like other people are aware of what's going on. I keep sharing my thoughts and how terrified I am. And maybe people just don't, or aren't ready to talk about it. Maybe the people who do know me, who come to my channel just aren't, they've still got their head buried in the sand. Or, I think a lot of people, they're ride or die Trump supporters, don't want to, you're just saying that because you don't like Trump. And you know what? If Biden had done this, I would be feeling the same way. If Biden had brought in Jeff Bezos or one of those other tech people and put them in, giving them the keys to America, I would be up in arms too, because there's no oversight. We did not elect Elon Musk. He didn't go through Senate. He didn't go through Senate and he didn't go through Congress approval. He didn't have to sit in those rooms and be, peppered with questions. What are you going to do? And Trump won by a very slim margin. They said 1% or 1 point or something. And I just feel like there's a lot of people like me who are sitting out here, thinking there's nothing I can do. I'm just not gonna watch because it's scary, right? Excuse me, it's scary. And you think you don't have anything to do in this. Well, at least at least be there for other people, right? I need some people to be here with me, to be for me. And I'm not telling y'all that. It's just I need to know that other people are getting this and that it's not just me and those people out there protesting. And I don't know how else to do it, but just to keep having my voice, whether anybody listens or not. I'm just going to keep doing it because I can't stop.
Including the direct concern about President Trump and unelected non-cabinet member Elon Musk as they prepare for a joint interview, which is unusual. The president sitting with another advisor, kind of putting Musk at a presidential level. That's happening this week as they face this pushback in the streets all the way to the courts. What does this resurgence mean? And how should people who care about the country respond and engage with their fellow citizens?
All right.
His slash and burn of bureaucracy and now federal workers caught up in Trump's mass layoffs are unsure of what to do next. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Thousands of government workers reeling from the chaos of the Trump-Musk effect and its aggressive effort to shrink the federal workforce.
We just have no information. We were just basically tossed out on the streets. And so that has been angering and heartbreaking. And our pay stopped the day we got the termination letter. So we're all without.
Did you hear that? Federal employees are getting fired and their pay stopped the day they got fired. No more money. You just lose your job. You're fine. You're fine. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing your job. And oops, they just fire you. You don't even get, I guess they don't even get severance pay. It's crazy.
Without a paycheck as of Tuesday.
And today, sources inside the Federal Aviation Administration tell ABC that hundreds of workers were let go despite massive staffing issues at the FAA. The union's president calling the decision unconscionable, especially in the wake of 3 deadly plane accidents in the past month. Also today, billionaire Elon Musk targeting access to detailed financial information about U.S. taxpayers at the IRS. Our Jay O'Brien usually covers the Hill, but today he is in the middle of a protest over these mass layoffs. Jay, tell us about where you are.
Yeah, we are standing just in view of the Capitol, Kira, and you can hear the chant actually go up around me of "Do your job." And that is in reference to the protesters tell us here, the people who work in this building right here, the United States Capitol. We've also heard of chant after chant of where is Congress, asking for some kind of congressional oversight into this massive overhaul of the federal government that President Trump and Elon Musk are engineering. There are federal workers here in the crowd. Some of them have even been fired in recent days, they tell us. And one of the sentiments we hear from those here is, of course, opposition to this effort of Trump and Musk to overhaul the federal government, but also a sense that this is far from over yet. I've talked to people here. I've also talked to people across the country, federal workers, who say it's their understanding from talking to their colleagues and seeing these actions that this is only one of the early phases of these terminations, Kira, and they are preparing for many more.
So Elon Musk and Doge now seeking access to personal taxpayer data. Why do they need that information, Jay? And is that even legal?
Well, this is reporting that was driven by.
I don't even want, why is
Elon Musk has got to go! Elon Musk has got to go! Do your job! Do your job!
I really wish that Congress would actually do their job, as people are chanting, and do something about the fact that this is an unelected citizen who has all this.
Fire Musk. Well, guys, I've got to run. My dogs are just going crazy in here. I do appreciate y'all watching. One of these days, hopefully we can get some people to talk about what's going on, with me. I would love to have people in my chat talking about this. I want to feel like I've helped somebody, and I don't feel like I'm doing that. So I'm going to go in here and try to figure out how it is that I can present this to people who are not wanting, or I guess still have blinders on or something. But I appreciate if you'd hit that like button, and it helped me get this out to more people. And also subscribe if you're interested in future, being able to come in and chat. We don't have a big channel, so you can come in my channel and you can talk about what's going on. Whereas if you're watching one of these bigger, like Midas Touch is now, Midas Touch, which is, a political channel, has now become the #1 podcast over, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now, but they have surpassed him, and they are #1 now. And this is political, discourse. So hopefully we can get a little bit of that over here so that people can chat about it. I'd love to chat with people about it, but I'm just not getting any feedback on my live streams when I do them. But, again, that's a me problem, and I'm going to figure out how I can better present things so that people can feel inspired and want to come in and talk about, this is what's going on in my neighborhood. This is what my cousin, this is what happened to my uncle. This is what happened to my, my daughter. And we can help each other figure out, how we can combat Elon Musk and get him out of there. I hope y'all have a great day, and I will see you soon.